Conversations. Catch up with us at coderconvos.com or contact us at coderconversations@gmail.com. I'm your host, Kevin.
And I'm Brian Russick, professional drummer, drum teacher based out of the Suffolk County, New York, Long Island area. If you'd like to book a lesson with me sometime, I could be found at brianrussick.com.
And joining us today is Jim Langer, artist and much more, professor, actor. Got quite the resume there.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'm sort of from up your neck of the woods. I'm from Connecticut originally.
Oh, me too. I'm from Bridgeport.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, how about
From
you?
a little town called Hartland, which
Okay,
is
where's that about?
specifically West Hartland. Well, if you know where, let's see, it's not, what's it called? Not the Housatonic. Oh man, I can't remember the name of the Farmington River. Farmington River runs down through Winsted, and I think it makes its way down eventually um, to New Britain,
Okay.
and it runs through Farmington, right? That's why they call it the Farmington River, and it it was blocked up on purpose in Heartland. Heartland used to be one town, and probably 800 to 1,000 people back in the late 1800s, and in the early 1900s they dammed up that river at one end to make a reservoir for Hartford.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's about 35, 40 miles away from Hartford, but this is where they were going to get their water pumped. And so they drowned the town.
Oh, wow.
The Heartland Hollow is the low part of the town. They just drowned that hole out. And so any people who stayed, not my family, that we moved there much later, the 1970s, but the people who stayed had to go up into the hills. And not that Connecticut has terribly rich farmland to start with, but the hills of Connecticut are well known as being nothing but granite rocks. Very beautiful,
Yeah,
but not good for growing anything.
right.
So they dwindled. They went from between having their houses submerged and having no way to really support themselves. They went from well over 1,000 people down to 300. And when I left, it was growing back, but I knew everybody in town in West Heartland,
Mm.
which was around 300 people when I
Wow.
left. The other half of town was about 700 when I left. So they were up back to 1,000. And now East Heartland's grown quite a bit because it's a bedroom community for not just Hartford, but Windsor Locks. A lot of
Okay.
people for United Technologies, and that kind of thing. Some of the defense contractors and engineering, and some of them were my family. So
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I grew up in Bridgeport near the Stratford Trumbull line. Um, Vazzi's, the Italian place, Vazzi's,
oh no, I don't know, but that sounds
or
good.
Treeland. You know where Treeland is in Bridgeport,
No, no, what's that? Tell me about that.
or
What's
Bearsley Park. You know where Bearsley Park is?
I I know that.
Okay,
I
there
do.
we go. Yeah, within like a mile of Bearsley
Oh,
Park, and I was there until I was 22, and then I moved to LA, and eventually moved back to New York, where my family is mainly in Long Island and Queens. So I've been in New York for, I don't know, past 7 or 8 years.
yeah, I could never tell from your accent that maybe you had family in Long Island and Queens. I used to have an accent like my mother and father, and I sounded like this. Everything was through the nose, and
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded like you were almost from the city. But every once in a while, you'd whistle. So my father, he has a gap between his teeth. That's not what makes him whistle. It's just this S sound in New England. As you go further up into the Berkshires, you get that kind of, like Pepperidge Farms kind of sound. So that's the way I used to sound. And I went to school in Boston. And while I was there, I dropped the accent. A lot of kids
Oh,
do
wow.
that. Go to college. I see it. I've been watching people come to college for 30 years, and they lose some of their old identity as they're trying out new identities, and they
Mm,
they and of course with the internet now, which obviously didn't exist when I was a kid,
yeah.
um, people hear a general way of talking. And then my first job out of college was as a DJ,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, a radio host. and so they wanted an even more flattened out sound, and so I did late night. I was on late night and early Sunday morning, and I introduced. I put an old vinyl record on of the Boston Symphony Orchestra on Sunday morning,
Mm.
so I got to introduce the. Now they had somebody already on the record introducing each song, introducing the composer and everything. But I at least got to say the general couple of names, And so I've
Okay.
always dreamed of. I always wanted to work for public radio, and sort of get to
Mm.
say all the fancy French and Italian names and everything of the composers. The Germans that's much harder, but it's the pretty names. And so I'd get phone calls, late night phone calls. I didn't take them on the air, but people would call in, and I had an occasional lady call and say, "Oh, you're like you're making love to the radio." And so I had to disabuse them of, I was married at the time. Uh,
Yeah.
so I was like, not really. So, but that was an interesting time. I was all of like went behind the ears, 23, 24 years old on the
So, and
radio.
where are you? Are you still in Connecticut?
Oh no, I'm in North Carolina
North
at,
Carolina, very
at
beautiful area down there. Lots of
right.
trees.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've got about 20 acres. I got about 20 acres of trees. And
Wow.
we live right smack in the middle of the state in Asheboro, or not in the city, but outside the city of Asheboro, about 5, 6 miles outside city limits. And it's the home of the largest zoo in the world.
Oh,
It's
wow.
not a nature preserve, and those are much bigger, but it's the largest actual zoo in the world, and they're expanding. They're going to have an Australian and an Asian section. They already have African and the Americas, so they'd be almost complete. I don't think they have any penguins, and I don't think they're planning to get penguins, but most everything else, they should have at least a few representatives here or there of some major species, and it's
Very
fun. It was
cool.
one of the reasons I moved here, because at the time I was doing a lot of drawings, mostly drawings, ink, of of animals, and I had a show with over 100 drawings based on going to the zoo with my daughter, who was like 3, 4,
Mhm.
5 years old at the time, and we'd go and draw together. So that was a lot of fun. So we actually put our works next to each other.
Oh, that's awesome. How do you like the South? It's very different from the Northeast.
It is very different, and it took some getting used to. I
You
did my
probably get
graduate.
the y'all not from round here. You probably
Oh,
get that a
sure,
lot.
sure. And but I picked up a few things. Y'all is a good word.
Y'all, yeah.
It covers a lot of ground. So, um, and let's see. I like it pretty much, except the politics,
Okay.
which I'm not actually going to talk about, because
Sure.
I was recently promoted because of actually unfortunate circumstances. The person who had been dean of our School of Arts stepped down, and so I'm interim dean, and I'm told that I do represent the college publicly, even though right now the disclaimer is anything I say on this show is not from my position as a representative of the college. I will not represent their views, and I certainly
Okay.
won't talk about my students outside of class. Right, that's all off
Yeah.
limits. But I can talk about education in general. I can talk about obviously art and design, and my own life as an artist, as well as actor, if you're interested in any of that. So
Yeah. Can
that's
you tell us a
that's
little bit? Can you tell us a little bit about the acting career?
well, that's been a long time of hit and miss, right? As it is for so many.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I started out trying to become an actor in college. I wanted to go to college for acting. I had been acting in high school and community theater productions,
Okay.
and I had the bug, right? And I liked musical theater. I liked Shakespeare. I liked anything I could sink my teeth into. Lots of fun stuff I was doing early on, and then the only place I got into for my auditions was Southern Connecticut State University. Or actually, it was just Southern Connecticut State College at the time. Now it's part of the UConn system, right? State college
Okay.
system,
Yeah.
state university system. And but back then it was kind of a little bit better than community college, right?
Okay.
But it's in New Haven. So I thought, New Haven, that's good. That's near the city. That's where I want to be.
Yale.
And I was 17. I graduated at 17. And I also auditioned at Yale, and they have an excellent school, best known for their graduate school, but their regular school of drama, very, very good. And they put me on a waiting list, which is excruciating, And then I also sent my art with those little old-fashioned slides that you actually put in a little
Oh,
slide
yeah.
projector, Kodachromes,
Yeah.
and
Very cool.
Kodacolor, Kodachrome, and Kodachrome, right? Paul Simon, and I sent those off to only one place that I think about being an artist. No, I take it back. I sent them off to two places. I had enough made for two places, and one was Rhode Island School of Design, which I got into, and the other was not Swarthmore. What's it called now? Ooh, it's in Saratoga Springs. Help me out. You're a New York fella. What's the school in Saratoga Springs? It's not
I'm
Swarthmore.
not sure. I'm not sure.
I got lost there on the way to on the way to Albuquerque. No, on the way to Schenectady. I got lost trying to find Saratoga Springs, and I can't remember the name of the place. Isn't that terrible? So I sent him off to that place, to Rhode Island School of Design, and I got into Rhode Island School of Design, which is one of the best in the country, right? One of the best in the world. I didn't get into the little rinky-dinky place out in Schenectady or whatever in Saratoga Springs, and so I was like, oh, great. And then the last place I auditioned as an actor was Boston University. And my acting partner, scene partner, as I recall, was this lovely young woman whose name I didn't get, or I didn't remember, right, at the time. And we had one brief little scene. It was from a Glass Menagerie. And I believe that's what it was. And she knocked out she was beautiful. She was great. And I was kind of shaky because of her, right? I was prepared. I'd done what actually usually just do monologues. My monologue was fine. They had to sing a little and then do a monologue. And when it was done, they loved her. She got in, right? I knew she would. And then they told me in a phone call later, yeah, we don't think you would really fit our program. You have a very good voice. We think you could sing. You might look into music as a career.
Okay.
Also, you have some interesting mannerisms and patterns of speaking. You might look into clowning, but we don't train clowns, and so we're sorry, right? But
Yeah.
they said, but we hear you do art. Now, this is in the days before there are rules now where they cannot collude. One college cannot call the other and find out who they've accepted, right?
Oh,
They
wow.
can't basically, you may have heard about this with the NCAA, et cetera. They're not allowed to do backdoor deals behind people, right? You can make upfront offers, but you're not supposed to get inside scoop from each other, right? It's collusion. It's illegal. But back then, they did it all the time. And I had pretty high SAT scores. That's what they wanted. And I don't know if they specifically wanted them in the art department, but they asked me, we hear you make some
That's
art.
what you gave them. That's what
Right.
you gave them. Yeah.
But I didn't have anything. All the little slides were gone. I could only afford to make 2 sets. So I said, what am I going to say? I don't know what to send you. And they say, send us some sketches. So I tore out pages from my sketchbook. And I sent those. And they said, we need one painting. And the only thing I'd ever made any painting with was watercolor. And they said, no, we'd like something, more substantial with some oil. And I was like, oil paint? Good Lord. I couldn't afford it. B, I wouldn't know how to use it. So I bought some Craypa. I bought some oil pastels and I
Mhm.
mixed them with a little bit of turpentine, or maybe it was my father's gas. My father was a mechanic, so I might have used his gas because I don't think we had turpentine just hanging around. And so I painted this really awful still life. Oh, one of the worst things I've ever seen. And I slid it in. I had to make something on paper that would slide into the envelope and send it off. And of course, they accepted me because they wanted the SAT scores. They didn't really
Ah.
care. They didn't care about the art, I don't think. So when I got there, it was
Very interesting.
it was something because all these people had done oil painting and they had done flower paintings and they'd been trained, and then little old me, I had to work like 20 times harder,
Wow.
and I kept me on my toes, right? So I put a lot of extra hours into it. My first drawing teacher there, and everybody who was there in my cohort that year, and for many years, their first drawing teacher was a guy named John Wilson. John Wilson is currently having a life retrospective of his art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Oh, wow.
And he had a show at the Boston Museum before that. It's the same show. It's traveled from Boston
That's
to
awesome.
there. Now he's been dead about 6, maybe 5, 6 years. And but when we had him, we said, this guy. We're learning from one of the great masters, and we all knew it. And he would start by showing us this day one. Day one, he shows us, well, here's a circle, and he's drawing it with his whole body. This guy was a sculptor. He made some of the great heads of Martin Luther King Jr. His
Wow.
bust of Martin Luther King Jr. is in Statuary Hall in Washington D.C. That's his bust.
That's incredible.
He made that, and he also made these giant heads. There's one on the Charles River in Boston, which is probably 12 feet wide, and so he's just like the specimen. And I found out later he was probably pushing 50 or so when we had him, but he
Okay.
looked like 25. I mean, he had a little gray in the temples, but he was like all muscle, sinew, And he starts drawing the circle just with his whole body, just giant circle. And while he's talking about, why art and drawing is like breathing, and the most important thing you can do as an artist is to see with your hands and move with
Yeah.
the charcoal, and this thing turns into a head, right? And it's just revolving. It turns first into a ball, from a circle to a
Right.
ball, and then to this head, to this just gorgeous, beautiful, deep toned. And we're all like, oh my God. And he says, I'll never forget it. It's like yesterday. He says, so some of you come here, you're all thinking you're going to be, the next, thing like sliced bread, you're going to end up with a international reputation. You're going to end up like the next Picasso. And he says, well, let me tell you something. I studied with, and he starts naming major figures that he studied with. Elizabeth Catlett, a major artist, Mexican American artist, African Mexican American, and
Okay.
ended up moving down to Mexico, in fact, and working with Siqueiros. And he went down there and worked with Siqueiros and her, and he also worked with Leger, Fernand Leger, who was maybe the third or fourth greatest cubist. You got Picasso, Braque, maybe Juan Gris, and Leger. Those two could be interchangeable.
Okay.
So major guys. And he says, that's great. I'm glad you're all ambitious. He said, the odds are, and he starts breaking it down. He says, the odds are, out of the 20 of you in this class, 3 of you might end up with a regional reputation if you stay wherever, in the Boston area, or
Yeah.
back, west, or wherever. If you live in a small town place, yeah, you'll be the best in town. But regionally, maybe 3 of you out of the 20. Maybe 1 will have some national shows once in a while, but you won't become super famous, probably. World famous, if you're Picasso, don't come to college. Get out of here. Go make the stuff.
Just go do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody got up. Nobody got up. We all just, took our licks and worked. So
So, like,
But it
what
was
were some
great.
of the major lessons that you learned from him?
Well, he was a sculptor, so and I try to impart this to my students, is that drawing is both a two-dimensional design, composition, but it's also a way of thinking in 3 and 4 and maybe 5 and 6 dimensions, because
Oh, wow.
you're not only dealing with um, imaginary space, an envelope, I call it, right? An envelope of space into which you put a volume. And that volume is described not only by an outline, but all the things you wrap it with, the way you make background tones next to it, cast shadows, um, reflected lights, all of that. It's illusion, but you have to understand whatever you're drawing literally like the back of your hand. So if I'm drawing the front of my hand, I want the viewer to understand how the back of the hand would look if it turned.
Okay.
And so he had us drawing like sculptors. And there are, it's taken me 40 something years to draw more like a painter. I've always drawn more,
Really?
and I'm not a sculptor. I'm not a sculptor.
So
I
why would you
very
say that is? Why did it take so long?
well because he left such an impression, but a good one. I mean, it served me well because there are some great artists who were like that. Dürer, the German artist, he uses these little curled hatch marks to go around the form and imply that there's a back to everything, you know, and mostly because he started as a printmaker and woodcut, and so you were actually
Okay.
literally cutting the wood, so you were really working in 3 dimensions. You just
Right,
printed it
right.
in 2 dimensions, you know. So in some ways, that is the translation of a sculptor, at least a relief sculptor,
Okay.
into a flat form. And
I see.
Catlet was a printmaker, etchings and woodcuts.
Mhm.
So I think that literally imprinted on me, and I think to more than myself, he was like a father figure. He was the fellow who was going to bring us into the family of art, real art, not podunk,
Right.
copy photographs crap. Sorry. See, now I said that. Now I'm in trouble. I like photographs. I like photography. I love photography, but I don't like drawing from photographs. They're a crutch. It's already 2 dimensional, so you don't have to
Yeah.
think. You can't even. You almost can't think in 3 dimensions with a photograph. It's robbed you of the back. There's no back of the head.
Right.
Right now, here we are on this little screen, right? And the camera's giving us, little pixel bites, and those are blurry to start with. And so what I do is I teach the students to look in, um, if they're going to use a photograph, to blur it out. Don't try to copy the pores. I say
Yeah.
don't put in the nose hairs, you know, and don't start with all those little details. You can get there,
Mhm.
right? Chuck Close, other guys, and they used photographs, right? That's okay. But if you're going to look at a live human being, they move and they breathe and they respond to an environment which is not flat, which is an envelope, which is a
Yeah.
volume. And because of that, it's more like, if you know the work of Giacometti, it's more like you're trying to find sort of the spine of the head, no matter where it goes, or even over here.
Mhm.
What is that? That's the thing closest to you. Well, technically, the glasses are closest to you, but this on the figure is the closest thing to you. Everything has to kind of peel open back to this in order to go back around here. So you see an ear, but you know that these glasses are being held up. If the other ear wasn't there, right, you get this. So you've got to
Right.
think, if this is here, we know this other thing is here. And that affects even little things like this. And it wasn't John Wilson, but uh, Jack Kramer, who died while we were working with him, not in class, but during the semester. He had a stroke and died. And
Oh,
he
no.
was succeeded by my second most. Well, Kramer made a big impression too, but in the 3 or 4 months I had him. But a guy named Arthur Polonsky, who just died 2 years ago at like
Mhm.
97.
Wow.
Arthur Blonsky, little hobbit of a man,
Hmm.
and he smoked a pipe and had the elbow patches, curly, beautiful curls, curly hair, and he had glasses. And he'd say, "Oh, Mr. Langer, if you're thinking about the year, you should remember that over on this side you have a vanishing plane." I said, "Vanishing plane? I've heard of vanishing points. What's a vanishing plane?" He says, "That's that sliver that corresponds to this point here. You've got it over here, and it's just foreshortened into this tiny little sliver. But if you draw it flat up and down, like one of these wrinkles, you'll flatten the face. So you've got to recognize that what you're doing here is you're going around it. That's your passageway, and the light behind it here. Notice that color right there, right? I can magically make it change colors when I put my finger there, because the camera can't handle that movement, right? So it
Yeah.
lightens up right there. It lightens up right there. And over
Right.
here, it's dark. Over here, it's dark. That makes this look light. This is light. That makes this look dark. And then when I put something near it, I get a little more light even up into it more. So understanding that the whole thing is round, you don't get that with a photograph. You only get that by studying a three-dimensional form.
Yeah, I find the fundamentals are extremely important. Like me growing up, I wanted to be an artist, and growing up, you obviously want to do stylized art, the cool style of the day. But like fundamentals are so important, because if you don't have the fundamentals, then there's going to be a lot of situations where you're stuck because you don't understand the actual principles that are causing things to look like that.
Yeah.
Um, so
And,
like,
and, and, and that's the
mm,
key word right there is looking. What happens is, and the other word you said is great, is stylized. So people fall in love with the style. And
Yeah.
and so they think it's a fashion, right? Styles go in and out, you know. Um, but looking and seeing, right? My students, sometimes I think they worry too much about how they look, right? And do I look cool while I'm drawing? Well, no, you're gonna look stupid. You're gonna have one eye closed. That people are actually doing that for a reason. They're measuring when they do this, right? And they're taking a measurement.
Yeah.
So they look stupid. And you squint when
Right.
you're shading, all that stuff. You cock your head different ways. There's all kinds of things you do as an artist that if somebody's watching, and now I'm recorded for all eternity,
It's like, what the hell is he
doing
doing?
these stupid things. But I say, better to look stupid and see well.
Mm.
yep.
It's more important to see well than to look good.
What
And,
would
and
be
go ahead.
your like number one tip for an artist just getting started, someone who's really green, very entry level, maybe right out of high school? What's one really important thing that you would convey?
Well, the old masters said, study nature. Go
Mm.
out and touch grass, right? And draw it while you're at it. And
Yeah.
drink it in. As I was saying before, multiple dimensions that goes along with multiple senses. So if you're in the landscape, if you're even bringing stuff in from outdoors and setting it up on a table, the more it's something grown from nature, right? Something hacked out of the woods,
Yeah.
um, or even if you bought it at the grocery store, cut a slice out, you know, get into it, take a bite, get to know its taste, its smell, its texture, um, get to know it, intimately, and I think it's a kind of Zen attitude towards art. There was a
Yeah.
writer many years ago, Frederick Frank. He was a Dutch artist. I think it was pronounced Frank, and he wrote a book called The Zen of Seeing, which I enjoyed a lot when I was young. It was cheeky and it had nudes in it, so I was like, oh, whoa, okay,
Oh, there we go.
teenager, I got to hit this book and it's seeing. Oh, look at that. So,
Look at
and yeah, look at that. That's different. And and
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely all au naturel, right? Get in touch with nature,
Mhm.
right? And I've been very influenced by Zen, actual Japanese art, as was Van Gogh, as
Oh,
was
okay.
so many of the late 19th century artists, Degas and others, and I love their freedom and
Yeah.
their. We're in Inktober now, right? So that's a tradition among artists is that every day of the month in October you're supposed to make an ink-related works,
Ah,
and I'm very bad about that. And but I love brush and ink. I've held Rembrandt drawings at the Rijksmuseum right in front of my nose with no glass on them.
yeah.
After hours, they let the security guard go, and the curator, Peter Schapman, let me stay an extra couple hours while he worked on some research, and he shared his research with me, and he said, "Go get that box." So I brought a box over, and I said, "Is this got what I think it's in it?" He said, "Yeah, it's all Rembrandts." And I said,
Wow.
I discovered two or three of them. See if you can figure out which ones." And so I start to open up the box, and I start to take one out and say, "Oh, where's the gloves?" He said, "You don't need gloves. Just don't touch the front of the thing, you know, and don't breathe on
Right.
them." He did have
Right.
to tell me
Right.
that. I was not breathing at all. I was like, "Oh my God."
Nervous. Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. And so Rembrandt he used the pen was a reed pen. You cut it from a reed, and so it's very blocky and it runs out quick. So he's got these blunt little brush strokes, and I had seen them before at the Harvard Museum, at the Fogg Art Museum, and I was there so often. I think they thought I went to school there, and because if you and I tell my students this, if you ask a museum, ahead of time, and you get permission to go into the drawings department, prints and drawings, they'll bring the stuff out to you, and you can spend hours with them if you want. Right?
Yeah.
You can't do that when it's hanging on the wall. They're not going to let you get close enough,
No.
and plus you're impeding traffic. I saw a Degas show at the Metropolitan Museum 30 years ago, and I had a little sketchbook with me, and I'm making sketches of, some of the portraits, some of the ballerinas, some of the bathers. I'm trying to do this real quick, not big, long things. I'm not standing in the middle of it. I'm way back in a corner looking across the
Mhm.
room. I'm not impeding anybody. But sure enough, they said,
Okay.
no, we have a rule. You can't draw. You can't draw in the special exhibition. And I said,
What?
how do you think he learned?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. The guy said,
And what'd he
art.
say?
Oh, he was going to call his supervisor, so I just kept moving.
Wow.
But yeah, the guy said the best art is planned and executed like the perfect crime. You don't. You're not waiting for permission.
Yeah.
You know. Uh, I don't think he ever did when he was young, he probably did a commission or two, and I did too. When I was younger, I did portraits, and I even did a damn dog painting. But nice dog, not a damn dog. The painting was a damn painting. But yeah, you kind of sell your soul out. So the second thing I would say to them is, you got nature, draw from nature, paint from
Right.
nature. Um, Second thing is, get away from commissions as fast as you can,
Okay.
because then you're not really your artist, you're their artist. And you start crafting your message or your style, right? Stylization to fit their taste, right? And
Right.
yes, you can make money that way, but you're mostly not going to make a lot of money as an artist.
Mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can find something else to do to support the art habit, do that something else.
Yeah.
For me, it's
Yeah.
for me it's been for me it's been teaching. You know,
That's great.
um, there are some years I make more money as an actor than I do as a painter.
Wow.
I can see that.
So it's
Tough
but
business.
I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to do commissions.
I think
I
that's
think
the
it's easier for sculptors, like outdoor public sculpture. Those kind of commissions. It's not that they're easy to get; they're hard to get. But
Right.
they're coming to you because they've seen your work.
Mm.
You're not changing your work to fit their taste. You know, because you've got a reputation and they want that. But with painting, and well, almost no one commissions a drawing, but um, uh, with painting, most of the people want a portrait done, never mind of their
Hmm.
dog or their kid,
Right.
but even of themselves, bank presidents, whatever. Uh, there's a style they already have in mind because it looks like everybody else's. You know, there are a few competitions, national or international competitions. There's one in Great Britain that they do encourage a little more outside the box, but Giacometti would never win one of those. That would be too
Okay.
far outside the box. There's limits even to that. You know,
I see.
yeah, propriety. Especially the Brits, right? But anybody with the taste to match their pocketbook tends to want to follow some kind of this will look good because other people have bought it. It's almost like they're
Right.
thinking investment rather than um,
Just liking the
although I will
work.
say,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just free
yeah. I mean,
expression. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and I don't know if I can entirely say that because a portrait is a personal thing, um, and almost no one can sit for a portrait. People are too busy, so
Yeah.
you end up doing it from a photograph, and that's another reason I don't do them
Yeah.
because I don't want flat. I want an intensity to them, and the flatness I will fight at all odds. It's always there, but it's the fight that makes
Yeah.
it interesting. You know,
Would
Van
you
Gogh's work
recommend
has
would
the
you
same thing.
recommend that a student really spends most of their time alone drawing? Or do you
Ah,
think group activities, because like with music, you got to spend a hell of a lot of
oh yeah,
hell of a lot of time by yourself. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm just guessing here that art is probably similar.
It can be. So not to name names or anything else, but we have an adjunct, and he's wonderful. And we had such a big class this year that we had to split the drawing classes in half because you don't want to have a drawing class. I did. I had 20 people in my drawing class. Generally, we don't want 20 people in a drawing class. Um, the drawing lab we have is relatively small. It has controlled light, all the things I like to have, and 12, 13, 14, 15. That's plenty. But we had
Yeah.
like 24, 25,
They're
and
packed in
so
there.
oh yeah, and so we split it,
Yeah.
and so the adjunct took half of them, and I took half of them.
Okay.
And this past week, we Friday, sorry, Thursday, and today, we had them drawing each other. They had to choose somebody from the other class and do a portrait of somebody else, and it sparked good things in both classes. There was one pair who there weren't enough people in their half of the class for them the first day to find somebody. And so
Okay.
those people from my class and their kind of buddies, they kind of just drew each other. So I was like, that's not really what we're after. We're trying to get to know other people. And
Yeah.
it's not so much from another class, but even just drawing somebody you don't know well will
Mm.
extend you. You'll have
Let it
a
be let it be
better time.
fresh, right? You want it to be
Yeah.
fresh.
It's,
Yeah.
it's like you've never seen them before, you know? And, but the good news is a lot of people made huge amounts of progress, but it surprised me because I've never really had this experience because I've never had 20 people in a class. When they were all together, boy, the place was rocking with noise because
Yeah.
everybody, it was a lot of socialization going on, and is that a bad thing? No, I mean, if it comes back to them looking at each other's work and learning from looking at each other's work, I don't think it's such a bad thing. They're not going to make the leaps and bounds that they'll make if they work on their own. If they work on their own and really put in the time. When I was in high school, senior year, I had taken the three classes that existed for art, except for ceramics. I didn't take ceramics, but I took
Mm.
art one, art two, art three.
Okay.
And so senior year, there was no art four. And so a couple friends of mine and I got together and I had this book that one of my uncles had given me when I was 10. called The Natural Way to Draw, and by
Okay.
Kimon Nicolaides is his name. And I come to find out that his editor lived in Greensboro, so all the drawings he did for it are in Greensboro.
Oh,
They
wow.
saved them. They saved them. I want to go see those drawings. I want to find out where they are and take a look at them. And it's a
Very cool.
wonderful, wonderful book. It's 90% or 80% gesture drawing, which is sloppy. It's just movement, right?
Yeah.
Blind contour, where you don't even look. Well, you don't close your eyes, but you don't look at the paper. Your
Yeah.
head's your drawing paper's over here. Your object's here, right? Here, get my hand in there. So the object's over here. You look at the object or a person or whatever you're drawing. You keep your eye on that while you're drawing over here. So you never see what the drawing looks like. Because the point isn't the drawing. The point is to get your eye and your hand moving at the same time.
Now, what would you consider abstract?
That's pretty abstract.
Yeah, it sounded like
the end
it.
result. I mean, it's you're literally drawing and making a tracing of every single actual thing you see, but the result is abstract. The process
Okay.
is as natural as possible, but the look. There we go again, right? The look of it is abstract, and people might reject it because they care more about looks than seeing. If they care more about seeing, they say, "Oh wow, look at all the stuff they saw."
So, like, what exactly is that exercise intended to do? Like, kind of get your eye and your hand in sync? Because I've done it a few times, but
Yeah. Oh, that's
kind
good
of.
for you. Where'd you learn that?
Well, yeah, primary. Before I got into programming, I wanted to actually be an artist, and that's
Yeah.
like really what I studied in like high school. And your parents kind of push you away because you're starving artist, and art school is expensive.
It's
So,
not
Oh yeah.
practical. Yeah.
Well, art school was not too expensive for me. What was my loans? I think were about 14,000 or something. And by the time I was done paying them, there was probably 20,000. With the interest,
yeah,
20,
Wow.
25. And my mother actually had a car accident that caused permanent brain injury. But from the settlement that she got, she paid off the last like $5,000 of my loan or something. And
Wow.
anyway, but my dad, what you're talking about, my dad was like, "What are you going to do as an artist? How are you going to survive? What are you going to do? We're not going to take care of you. You can't move back in." I was 19, 20,
Jeez.
2021 or something. But I got married when I was in college, so I was not going to live with them, right?
No.
And so, but she had a good job. In fact, she came to Greensboro, North Carolina for her job. That's where I did my graduate school. And so that's how I got introduced to North Carolina and came back and ended up teaching in Greensboro later. So, goes around, comes around. But my dad was just like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, what are you going to do?" He's a mechanic in a truck. He owns a truck and he drives that truck and he's done it. He's 83. He's still doing it. And he's driven it for 45, 50 years, and before that he was a mechanic,
Wow.
had his own shop and everything.
So you must
And
love it.
so, well, I think he's like he's cyborg, right? He's had both hips
Yeah.
replaced, both knees replaced. He
Okay.
probably needs his shoulders replaced, but he's not going to do it. That stick shift and that thing and the wheels. I mean, it's like part of him, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
He does love something of it, you know. He loves the fact that he's working.
Yeah.
He has a garden. He's got 15 acres himself, but he can't do much on it anymore. He'll knock down the hay, but he can't get the hay in, you know.
Yeah. And I know like most guys, especially as they age, they're gonna have projects. They
Right.
can't just sit, silently still. I mean, maybe some people can, but my dad, I always, he worked until I don't know, pretty late in his career, but he always, even when he was working, he always had projects, always had
Yeah.
projects. So
Yeah.
I think I don't know why that is, but I feel like a lot of guys are like that. They
Oh
can't,
yeah.
even after they retire, they really can't sit still and
Right.
and just relax.
Right. They'd rather have a workshop than a man cave. Right.
Correct.
They're not going to
Yeah.
sit back and just watch TV or sports. My dad,
No.
very little. He liked the Red Sox. He still occasionally pays some attention, but not much. And his dad was a farmer, full-time farmer, but then he got into radio. He was a shortwave radio and ran a radio league, the American
Oh, wow.
Radio Relay League of the shortwave. What do they call that? Shortwave. There's a word for that.
Was it ham radio? Or
Yeah, ham radio. That's it.
Okay.
My grandpa was in Connecticut, one of the guys who helped kind of coordinate all of that stuff. So he was all into radio. He didn't talk much in real life. I don't think he talked that much on the radio. He was all into the engineering of it. He'd like to figure stuff out. He kept tractors running by just knowing which things. That's where my dad gets it. The mechanical
Yeah.
thing. They both could have been engineers. They had the brains for it, but they grew up with their hands in the dirt. And that's what I told my dad. I said, well, Dad, you put your hands in your dirt and you add water to it. You set it out, you let it grow, see what it's going to be. And then you enjoy the harvest. I've got this, and he works with oil, and,
Okay.
and grease. And I said, well, if you take oil and grease and you put it in some dirt, you got paint. What am I painting? I'm painting something that starts out just this kind of mechanical beginning, and then I'm going to let it get organic and see where it goes. He was not a usually expressive. He was like telling stories and stuff, And I guess even at work, he had to get to work to get the job done, but he was, great with a laugh and a story, and welcome people in. One of his customers, regular customers, every few months was Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn would come in, and one time I'd gotten I don't know what I was doing. Maybe I was sick, or maybe I was too young to even be in school, and I was just hanging out at the service station with my dad in the little area people come into to pay or whatever, and to wait while they work on her car. So she comes in, and I don't know who she is, and she walks up and she sits down next to me. She says, "Pardon me, young man. What are you looking at?" And I was reading Peanuts comics. Oh, that
Okay.
Carl Schultz. He's so funny. I love Snoopy. He's just grand, just grand. And then she, could I buy you a Coca-Cola? And so she, he had one of those little ice machines, little red ice machines, and she bought me a Coca-Cola. And then when it was done, she went off. And afterwards, I said, "Dad, this lady came in and talked to me, and I like her car. It was this little MG. I didn't know it was an MG, but it was this little sports car."
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, you know who that was?" And she said, "I have no idea." And she says, "That's the sister of our town librarian, Miss Peggy. Miss Peggy was the town librarian, and she sounded exactly like her." And I said, "Oh yes, I recognize the voice," but she didn't look like her. They didn't look alike. Miss Peggy was much older, and sure enough, she said, "Yeah, that's a famous actress." Oh, that's cool. And so I don't know, probably within a few years, I watched one of her movies or something, and my dad said, "You know who that is?
Yeah.
That's the lady who bought you a Coke." So
That's awesome experience. Yeah.
in Connecticut, you do get those sightings sometimes in some of the towns. Her dad actually was head of surgery at Hartford Hospital, and my grandmother would occasionally assist him in surgery. My grandmother was a nurse.
Wow.
But yeah, all a bunch of stories. Everybody knew everybody back then. Little towns. That's what I miss about New England. In the South, there are little towns, and everybody knows each other somewhat. But in a little town in Connecticut, you can basically walk the whole town. You get on your bike, you could go everywhere in town. The post office, when I was growing up, the post office was in the back of somebody's house, and so you went there, and everybody went there to get their son. So you met everybody every day. One of our neighbors was Gary Berghoff, who I mentioned Charles Schultz. Gary Berghoff played Charlie Brown on Broadway, and A Good Man, Charlie Brown, and then later on he was Radar on MASH.
Okay.
No,
And
wow.
he was a hell of a drummer.
Really?
Gary Berghoff, he was a hell of a jazz drummer. He had his own
That's
trio
awesome.
for quartet maybe, I can't remember, but it was he'd play occasionally in the area, but he was good. He was really good. Nice guy. Very
That's
private.
awesome.
Very
Yeah.
private. He didn't come to like big public functions. He performed. Happy to see people. He came in to vote once a year, and then you saw him at the post office. You saw him at the post office. And if you went out, like my dad and I would go out fishing on Heartland Pond, his house was right on the edge of Heartland Pond, and so you're out fishing, you wave to him on the other shore.
So
So
yeah,
nice.
that's pretty typical of musicians, introverted, shy. Like I said, spend a lot of time alone with your instrument. You know, when I was I started playing when I was 14, and I basically started playing with a guitarist immediately.
Oh wow.
Yeah, my next door neighbor, he was like, "Oh, you should get some drums and then we can play." I was like, "Okay, great. I don't know anything about the drums, but it sounds fun." So I
Huh.
was able to, wrangle up a set and, just started banging away on it. And, it sounded pretty terrible at first, started to
Of
get better
course.
over time,
Got to start.
But what I noticed one day, a kid came over and he was playing some beats. I was like, "Oh, wow, it's really cool. Like, how'd you come up with that?" It's like, "Oh, I just, I played alone and I came up with it." And I was like, "Oh, wow." Like, I said, "I never play alone. I'm always playing with the
Oh, gotcha.
guitarist." And
Yeah.
so from meeting this kid who at the time he was better than me, so of
Hmm.
course that kind of woke
Hmm.
me up like, okay, let's get this going,
Yeah.
And yeah, so being alone, it's really
Yeah.
important.
Putting
Yeah,
the
it's
hours
really
in.
important.
Absolutely.
You got to put the
Back.
time in if you want to get anything out of it
Oh yeah.
substantially.
Back in college, they at BU they would keep the classrooms open until like 10 o'clock at night, and I was in there, and especially for the drawing. I mean, I want to learn painting too. I had some very good people in painting. Charles Schultz, I mentioned, was
Yeah.
best friends with my first painting teacher, David Ratner. I only learned that last year.
Wow.
Only learned it last year. Charles Schultz came through Boston one time, and I missed him when I was in college. But the show Snoopy was working its way to Broadway, and Jim Dale. Have you ever heard the um, books on tape, audiobooks of Harry Potter?
Mm.
Jim
No.
Dale. Jim Dale does all the voices,
Oh wow.
and he's amazing. But back, 30 years ago, 40 now, I guess, he played Snoopy on Broadway, and he was tremendous. And I saw him in the Boston Run, and I guess at some point, because I worked as an usher in that theater, Charles Theater, and at some point I missed in a rehearsal, or maybe it was one of the nights I was not on as usher. I missed Charles Schultz, and he was lifetime idol of mine. And if I had known what I learned a couple years ago, that or last year, it was just last year, I read this big by a guy named Mike Michaels. I recommend it. It's a great cover. It's a yellow book with the zigzag, for Charlie Brown's shirt, and
Oh, okay.
just called Schultz. And a difficult life and a difficult man, hard to love, beloved worldwide, but in his personal life, some difficulties, real
Yeah.
difficulties. And that's, I think, what you're talking about is this kind of closed up. He never let anybody else ink. Like a lot of artists will doodle up
Hmm.
a rough sketch and then let somebody else do the inking. That's common,
Right.
like comic books especially, but comic strips too. Especially once you're making a lot of money, right? I mean, he developed a palsy in his hand, a tremor, essential
Oh
tremor,
wow.
from basically like a lifetime of carpal tunnel, in essence,
Mhm.
you know. And then he had a stroke, and then
Wow.
he died. He died of cancer, colon
Yeah.
cancer, which had
Wow.
been undiagnosed. So I mean, just tragic. He
Wow.
died the day before his last strip ran.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, tragic.
That's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. I also there's a wonderful little book of essays called the Peanuts Papers,
Hmm.
and I assigned it chose it for a men's book club I belong to. This book club's been in existence since I was 12. I was not a member of it then. I was up in Connecticut. It's down here in North Carolina, in Greensboro. And it's been going since like 1976. And I am now the second youngest person. For about 20 years, I've been the youngest person in it. And we finally recruited somebody younger than me. But I chose this book, The Peanuts Papers.
Yeah.
And well, first of all, it's essays. You talk about guys and how they relate in later life. They talk about the loneliness epidemic among
Yeah.
older men, because you can't make friends very easily. Like you did in college, it was automatic.
So different. Yeah.
And even when you're raising kids when they're young, they're both on the same team. I was a baseball coach. My kid was in baseball. I got to know some of them. Different walks of life,
Right.
but I was friends with them. We had fun looking at the games and being involved. But but you still wouldn't necessarily go out and like just without the kids going fraternize.
Right.
So those kind of associations have really kind of died out. And I choose those words purposely because while I've been in this group, we've lost 5 or 6 of the guys.
Wow.
If they've aged into their 90s, late 80s, etc. And some of them were the founders. So there's 2 guys left who started with the group. One's a retired Superior Court judge, right, and one is an ex businessman, etc. And he's still sort of runs it, but he gets a lot of help now from a couple other guys. They almost all live in the same apartment complex, retirement complex, except for the judge and 1 or 2 others. So we hold them there, right? But the oldest member, he just turned 95. When he read the book,
Wow.
he says, and he's a doctor. He's just brilliant human being. And in his mid 90s, he's got a sharp mind and memory for things.
Sharp. Yeah.
Really sharp. And that's how you keep it. You read, right? No, I'm
Yeah.
serious.
Keep it
And
sharp. Yeah.
TV is not going to keep you sharp. The internet, no offense, guys. No offense. But I don't know if podcasts will keep us sharp, right?
Yeah.
Not so
book,
sure. Yeah.
Right, a book with structure, even a book of essays where each essay has its own structure, right? Something that delves deeper into something, into a subject matter, and really gives you an analysis, right? And it might be a biased analysis, but they give maybe reasons for it, right? And so that's what they tend to like to read. They read a lot of history, and they the guys assign history, a lot of war related stuff. One guy is a 4-star general, retired 4-star
Wow.
general. Used to be on the Joint Chief of Staff. Used to run. He was the commandant at West Point, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, really high up guy.
It's intense.
And he led a place in Greensboro you may have heard of called the Center for Creative Leadership. It's a pretty cool place. And he's a pretty cool guy. He's well into his 90s himself. But all of these, that's the stuff they wanted. And so when they find out they're going to read about comic strips and Charles Schulz, kind of his life, but it's not a biography. It is appreciations and analysis and some criticism. And one of them talked about how one of the strips, they never win baseball games. He loses every baseball game. But then one season, Peppermint Patty joins his team. And all these years, Peppermint Patty has just knocked the snot out of him, with her team. But this year, she's playing for them. And she's smacking the ball out. It runs coming in. Unbelievable. They're going to win the game. It's like 19-1. And she's pitching too, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's 19-0, right? And then she's getting kind of tired in the 9th inning, but she's feeling cocky, and she says, "Hey, Charlie Brown, here you go, Chuck." And I guess Chuck is what. No, she calls him Chuck. Here you go. Here's the ball. You can do this to boost up his morale. They've always had a thing anyway, or at least she has a crush on Charlie Brown. Sure. And so I'm going to do it. I'm going to win my first game, And although not really, right? He wouldn't get the win, but So sure enough, he lets in 20 runs. Lets in 20 runs.
Wow.
Interesting.
And the commentary in it is that we all have our destiny, right? And that Charlie Brown is the ultimate loser. You can't let Charlie Brown win. You can't let him win.
Yeah.
In film, Hitchcock, oh, Alfred Hitchcock. He says you've got the MacGuffin, the thing nobody really cares about, but you put it in there, right? And you have all these beautiful people say these witty lines, and then you keep them on their edge of the seat by having this bomb, and they're afraid the bomb's going to go off. And he said, whatever you do, don't let that bomb go off, because they'll never forgive you. Because these beautiful people have to come out unscathed, right? Now that gets violated a lot now on movies and TV. You'll see the hero get lost, die,
Yeah.
you lose
Right.
them. But back then it was the same sort of thing. It was Charlie Brown cannot be allowed to win a game. They remade, or they didn't remake, but they made a movie that's called the Peanuts movie, and it was made by Schultz's son, and it's a computer generated, or not. It's using computer graphics.
Okay.
And it looks three-dimensional. It does kind of what I talked about a bit before, but nothing's connected. Like eyebrows float in front of the heads and this kind of thing. It's all right. It's all right. I can buy it. I'm into it. It's fine. And they used his late drawing technique where he has the palsy, where it shakes a little. And I was like, that's beautiful. I'm glad they used that.
See, that's authentic to leave that kind of stuff in. That's
Yeah,
real life. That's real life.
it's as if he had drawn it. But then I don't know if I'm giving away a spoiler alert, right? The little redhead girl, we see her, and Charlie, and she speaks to Charlie Brown. I think they even have a half a second of a kiss, right? It might be a pity kiss, but I think she moves at the end of the movie. She moves out of town. It's still going to be unrequited, right? But she expressed something. He wins. He wins the girl. He can't keep the girl. You violated the primal reason for Charlie Brown existing. Charlie Brown he's the Jesus of the comic books. He must die over and over and over again, only to be reborn the next week.
Right.
If he wins, game over.
Game over.
He's happy.
Yeah.
He's happy. He's happy. He can't be the same Charlie Brown ever again. Right? Good old Charlie Brown. That's the first thing ever said about Charlie Brown. 1955, right? What's that? 70 years ago this year, right? Charlie Brown. And on October 1st or October 2nd, I can't remember which, of 1950. So it'd be 75 years. 75 years. And Snoopy is 70 years old. Snoopy came out in 1955.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it's October 1st because it's the same day as my sister's birthday. And he comes out, and first thing said about him, he's walking down the street. And there's two of the other kids sitting there, and they watch him, and they start over here, and they say, "Oh, there's Charlie Brown. Yeah, good old Charlie Brown. Good old Charlie Brown. Yes, sure enough. How I hate him." You can't now. You've set 50 years in motion, 50 years of drawings, 80,000 drawings.
Wow.
And he was true to it right to the end. He never broke that rule, right?
Yeah.
Now it's his son. I give him grace, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they should ever do it again, right? That's a one-off.
Yeah.
If they tried to make, I think there is a Snoopy show, but it's not Charlie Brown. Snoopy's different. Snoopy can do everything. Snoopy can be anybody, right? He's Sopwith Camel. He's a World War I flying ace. He's Joe Cool. He's he's got all these persona. So he could live forever. and change every time. He's Proteus, right? If you know your Shakespeare, right? He in Two Gentlemen of Verona. You have Valentino, the self-styled, great lover and poet, and you have Proteus, who is a bit crazy and a little mad and unpredictable. And he's Protean is the word we get from his name. He can change. He's like Walter Mitty, but it's not because he wants to change. He can't help it. He's one thing after the other, and so the two of them are in opposition. I played that part once in Hartford, actually, at the Bushnell Park. You ever been to Bushnell
Nice.
Park in Hartford? And we did that. Capitol Classics, it's called. It's still running.
Wow.
That group's still running. So the guy who played Proteus, nice actor. We made our entrances with these rapiers,
Mm.
and they had tips on him. Thank God, because he starts swinging it, and he's not swinging it
Yeah.
like we practiced. He's swinging
Yeah.
different, and I'm like, and he pings my ear, almost a
Wow.
Van Gogh moment, right? And thankfully, I had that little thing, and it hurt, but it was like, well, let's not do that one that way again. Yeah. So my daughter's studying acting now at University of North Carolina School for the Arts,
Oh, good for her.
Oh, awesome.
which is a great school. It's like number two in the world for undergraduate acting education, right up there. Sometimes it's number one, sometimes it's number two.
Yeah.
So very happy she's there, but and she got the bug, right. So she's like 3, 4, 5 years old, seeing me. I was playing Man of La Mancha, the Don Quixote character,
Mm.
and she's like 3 or 4, but she memorized all my lines because I said them at home, right, over and over again. And
Right.
then she
Right.
come to rehearsals and she memorized everybody else's lines. She memorized
Wow.
all the songs. She had perfect pitch. And then so
Wow.
she knew when people were off pitch and when they didn't know their lines. And so in rehearsals, she'd yell out to people like she was the prompter. She said, "That's the wrong
Oh,
line."
that's brutal.
It is brutal.
Yeah,
The
that's
3-year-old
brutal.
gets your critique, So, but yeah, I mean, my son plays instruments,
Oh wow.
flute and oboe, and
Oboe, that's a hard instrument.
sometimes a little bit on the piano. One day I walk in and I hear the piano and I'm like, wow, my daughter it's gotten really good. I say to my wife, she's really gotten good, because she'll
Mm.
just be plunk a few things while she's singing. She sings beautifully. She has perfect pitch. She knows which ones to hit, but she never had much rhythm or anything on the piano.
Yeah.
And like refused to read music. No, I don't need it. I have perfect pitch,
Yeah.
And and so I hear this stuff, and my wife turns to me. This is like a year ago, and says, "Well, no, that's James." Oops, I probably shouldn't have said his name, but that's your son. And he'd watch some YouTube videos,
Mm.
and he'd just watch the patterns, right? Just looked
Yeah.
at the way the patterns worked, and he figured it out. He has very good hand-eye dexterity, but probably from gaming.
Ah.
Yeah, plays a lot of games. He's very fast. Those things you can take online to see how fast your
Mm.
reflexes are and everything else.
Oh,
He's so fast. He's so fast. It helps in the sports and everything, but he was just playing right along. So he's got the ear. Can't sing, can't keep a note,
Yeah.
but plays these instruments, picks them up like that. There's a lady in the Greensboro Symphony Orchestra who's his oboe teacher, and he'll come home after a lesson, and it's like he's made huge strides.
Yeah.
But you're right, we've got to spend more time alone. But he
Yeah.
does. He'll do.
Especially something like the oboe. I used to play the clarinet, and
Oh,
many hours alone. Any kind of instrument with a reed.
yeah, double
It's
read for
tough.
the for
Oh yeah, for
oboes.
the
Double
oboe,
read.
double
It's
reed.
like,
So it's
whoa, you gotta
it's
hold your
tough.
mouth like you're like or Jim Carrey or something. It's crazy. So, well, guys, we've hit our hour.
Yes, we
yeah,
have.
man. It was amazing hearing all your stories, and I know you've got much more. So whenever you're free, we'll have to get you back and get more of your stories.
Well, I've got a billion stories, that's for sure, and there may be a way to share some art with you, and I can
Oh
talk
yeah.
about either art that you'd like to talk about or some of my own, and
Hmm.
and just and just see what we can invent. So this
Yeah.
is very freewheeling, freestyle kind of stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very much improvisational. That's how we like it.
Where can we see your art at? If the audience wanted to check you out.
I'll be having a show next year, but the date hasn't been picked yet. A show of heads. I'm going to call them heads rather than portraits. And the heads will all be based on famous artists and their self portraits, but they won't be copies. I'm asking friends of mine, including the president of the college I teach for, to sit in the guise. I'm going to put whatever, scarf, beret, whatever, have them pose as the artist. And then in the background, there'll be not a copy exactly, but something reminiscent or a part of one of their paintings. So I've got somebody chosen for Degas, Giacometti, Cezanne. I'm trying to convince my wife to pose as Georgia O'Keeffe. But if you know anything about Georgia O'Keeffe's self-portraits, they're not self-portraits. They're photographs by Stieglitz, and they're mostly in the nude. So I don't know if she'll do it. We'll see. She's a kindergarten teacher, so got to watch that.
Okay.
But the name,
PG,
the name of that gallery is Ambleside in Greensboro, and it's got a national reputation, and it's run by a guy named Jackson Mayshark. Excellent. He's had iterations of this gallery in New Zealand, England, and India, and now in Greensboro. So, and he's starting to think about retiring. He's up there in years, and he's going to be my Giacometti. He's got this really long. He's even longer face than me, and really fits the look of Giacometti.
Yeah,
so,
very cool.
I'm told I look like Stephen King, but he's not a painter, so I don't know how to
a
fit
little
that.
bit, yeah.
But I get that, and sometimes Tom Waits. When I've got a little soul patch, I'll get Tom Waits. So,
okay.
All right. Take care.
Hey, we appreciate you having you on. Did you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Well, I wanted to ask where you're based here. I heard upstate New York here for where are you?
Long Island, New York, actually.
Oh, you're in Long Island now?
I'm in Long Island. Yeah.
Okay. You were in upstate.
No.
No, I was in California.
California, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Long Island.
Okay. That's okay.
And Queens. Or your family's from
Queens. Yeah.
Yeah. And then yourself?
Oh, I'm from Texas, Frisco right now, but originally from
really?
Colombia. So yeah, I'm on the other side of the map.
Yeah.
My brother lived a long time in Texas, mostly around Austin.
Okay.
Awesome.
Moved to Louisiana, or actually by now I think he's moved on even from there. He might be in Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
He lives in a trailer in a what do they call it? RV.
RV.
And he's got his girlfriend is a tattoo artist, so he's got a tattoo studio that he hauls behind the RV and his Harleys. He's
interesting.
He's 6'3", probably 250 pounds, as you can probably tell. I am not, and great big beard, no hair on top, and wears bandanas and teaches people how to use high-powered rifles and assault rifles at the gun ranges.
Oh wow!
So we're on opposite sides of reality. So
sounds like it.
Yeah, it's got to be some difference in the family, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it was a pleasure, Jim.
Very nice to meet you. Very nice.
Yeah,
to meet you.
Most definitely. We'll definitely stay in touch. I just added you on LinkedIn.
Oh, great. And I'm trying to think what else. So how do we get to watch this? I think I saw it on what's the name of the podcasting platform I could find this on?
We got it on YouTube. I can send you the link right now. Actually.
Okay, great.
It goes there right away. Yeah.
Because I heard a couple of yours, just heard them, didn't see them, and it wasn't YouTube. It was some other podcasting platform. So I don't remember.
Somebody might have been like Spotify or something.
I don't have Spotify,
Hmm.
so I don't know what it was on. But it wasn't. I don't have Spotify. My family had it, but I don't have it on my devices.
Okay.
It was on a website
Oh,
with multiple ones from you guys.
oh, maybe the actual website, codercombos.com, like kind of like a purplish star
Yep,
background. Yeah, yeah,
that's
Oh,
it.
yeah.
okay. Cool.
So that's not a standalone podcasting platform. That's your actual
Yeah, our
website.
website
Okay.
that's like
That's the
embedded
website.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched or I listened to a couple of them. I enjoyed it. So yeah, you guys
Awesome.
are good conversationalists. Enjoyed it.
We
Oh
try
yeah,
to
it was.
do the 1-2 punch, back and forth.
Ow, ow. Yeah, I didn't even
Exactly.
get to talk about being a clown. I was a professional clown for a
Yeah.
while.
Oh wow, yeah, we have to get into that one
Well,
next time,
definitely
definitely.
have to have you back on sometime. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
my students swear I never gave it up. So
But
okay,
yeah,
take care.
it was a pleasure, Jim. You have a good night now.
Bye bye.